I'm wondering, since you bring up like friends, right? And as reporters, we go out and talk to a lot of people, a lot of young people at school, but then also people elsewhere, sometimes young, sometimes older. Do you hear about like similar issues, or like what other issues do you hear of specifically from young folks that you talk to, like that are happening in their communities? Like, what is like some of the stuff that you hear from community members?
Um, I think I would like to like go on about the policing and the over policing, especially in schools,
Yeah.
and just like the presence of these like the CSOs on campus, and it's like they're they don't create like a comfortable environment, a safe environment, which is what school's supposed to be,
Right.
and so they're not helping with that really, and a lot of people say that, like a lot of people I've talked to and stuff like that.
Is that a problem like just with the CSOs? Because I've heard some. There's certainly been a lot of talk about this kind of stuff, right? I know we've had incidents here, like in the last year or so. Specifically at schools like Poly was one that was in the news. And that inspires a lot of conversation about like the culture in schools, like that it does feel that way. Is that just like a CSO problem, or does it go like wider in your experience, like to like teachers or admin or anything like that?
Um, well, it might be greater, like to a greater scale. And that you mentioned teachers, it's like there might be also like a sense of how teachers might depend on the CSOs a little bit too much and like call to them for like unnecessary things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I guess it is like to a greater scale.
Right. What about for y'all? Like,
I guess for me, from coming from like an experience of like going to different clubs and hearing what people like hearing what different kind of classmates say, there's always like, I mean, I bring up again like the fact that the students and the school have like this big disparity in communication and how some students want this, but the school doesn't want that, right? I think one of the biggest recent things that happened was a bunch of students, organized a petition to lower the school to a minimum schedule, right, to about 12:20 or 12:30. A lot of people signed that, parents, students included, right? Uh, of course, the faculty, not the faculty, but the school administration said no because it undercuts them and it ruins the school system, right? And I think the fact that that even though that we're in COVID-19, we're in a pandemic, right? And there's a lot of like issues going on that are very like different. Well, not necessarily that they're new, but they're definitely things that people haven't just heard about just until recently. Is the fact that they're not changing their curriculum to suit the times, and it kind of shows that, right? Because they're staying the same course, they're trying to fit the same school curriculum that they've had, and they're just like pushing it in like circle peg to a square peg, or a circle thing to a square peg, I suppose, and it's just unfeasible, right? A lot of students I've know, even in LBCC, they're talking about how hardworking they are and how like the curriculum is a little bit overkill considering their current situation, right? My friends are struggling, my family struggling. I think everyone is struggling in general, especially if you're not well off or privileged, right? And it just doesn't feel right. I feel like students should have the right to have an opinion and to have a say in school matters, but the fact that the school administration is to the point of like autocratically like dictating what the students should have, even though the students should at least have some say, even if they disagree, that students know what students want, and if they're not going to listen to what students really like want in their education and what they desire, like different classes, different curriculum, then to me that's a very flawed like system and a flawed education curriculum for sure.
Yeah. Going off of what Alvin was talking about, like the communication between students and faculty, I'd have to agree with that. I think that there is a lapse with what the students want, what admin wants, faculty. I remember there was an incident that happened at Poly February of this year where a teacher used a racial slur on a student, and there was a whole thing that went down. And some teachers were trying to have open conversation with the students about, and the students also wanted to have open conversation with their teachers about, race and about what it means, what this word means. And administration didn't want that, and they were trying to, shut it down. I was working on a paper, on an article for my school's newspaper, and I got an email from a teacher, and the email was sent out to all the staff, and it said, don't talk about this, let's not talk to the students about, what happened. They didn't want to have any conversation. And I think it's really wrong to not give students a seat at the table when it's, students who make up the entire, 90% of the school.
Sorry, were you gonna?
Yeah, can I add?
Yeah, go for it.
And that wasn't even like an isolated case,
Yeah.
because prior to that, I was also on the school newspaper. There was an issue where something happened. There was like a lot of cops in the school, and it happened like towards one building. And so an email was sent to teachers saying, don't let your students out like during a certain time period. And then they sent one where, now you can let them go out. And like that was sent only to teachers. There was no explanation like as to why they had to keep their students in or out. And I tried to talk to administration and be like, well, what was this about? And again, it's like they didn't say anything. They couldn't say anything.
Mm-hmm. And how does that make you guys feel, like going to a school where maybe information is like withheld from y'all?
Yeah, well, I actually, the only way I've received that email was from a teacher who trusted me enough, and he was sure, the teacher was sure to be like, hey, don't put me in this. And that was the only way I was able to get a hold of that email. And I feel like it's really disgusting that we have to jump through loopholes, and we have to as student journalists, we have to jump through these loopholes to try and get this information, to give it to other students. And that admin faculty, and then tries so hard to cover everything up. And there needs to be open discussion, like, hey, this is what happened, right? This is why we are on lockdown. This is why we're not able to leave. This is why police, came to school. Because it really does freak some students out. It freaks me out as well. And it's like, it's not right to just, you can't just put a cover over a fire, right? You don't just throw a blanket over and just expect the fire to go out.
Right.